Rockaways Productions presents The Casey Waters Show, Episode 519, Power to the People. Hello, I'm your host, Casey Waters. Well, I recently got back from vacation time. I went to Las Vegas to see Dead & Company at the Sphere. 3 wonderful shows. Then I went to the San Francisco Bay Area. So, tonight I will continue with Future Perspective. Here, I look at how working on our relationships and our health can improve situations in the future. Then it's on to power to the people. Here I look at how giving the people a little more power in influencing government can lead to better outcomes. Also, I look at how this concept of power to the people is a goal of the Eastside Imaginary Territory. Today's show will feature background footage from San Francisco, including an art exhibit, the Haight-Ashbury neighborhood, and Golden Gate Park. Also, I have background footage from Santa Cruz. So now, let's continue with Future Perspective. Well, then you start getting into finances at some point, and there's 2 kinds of financial relationships the way I see it. Of course, you could go for a blend of the two, but let's look at them a little more in an absolute sense first. You got Type A. Well, what is Type A? Well, it's just an arbitrary designation, of course. But what is it? Okay, that's the situation where my money is my money and your money is your money. And even though we are in a relationship, we don't mix or share our money. My money is mine and yours is yours. And I guess if we have things that we share, such as a mortgage payment or rent payment, we could just split it, each contributing half. And so on and so on. Groceries, electricity, each contributing half. The phone bill, the cable bill, whatever, you each pay half. And then you each get things that you might want beyond that. Perhaps a nice vacation or other things. This type of financial relationship, even though it might seem like it's logical, it is often difficult to work out and often creates friction. Often, one person is wealthier than the other. And so if you do everything this way, where each person spends their own money on themselves and doesn't spend on the other person, except for shared bills like rent and electricity. You know, if you buy your food and I buy my food, and you buy your clothes and I buy my clothes, and you pay for your doctors and I pay for my doctors, well, someone's going to run out of money, typically, because one person has more money than the other. Then the other person suffers, and that there's friction and regret, and it's not that hard to work out. And folks, jump over to Type B, we have the type B financial relationship. Well, in theory, things work out a little smoother over here. What is type B? Well, you're in a committed relationship. You're together for the long haul. So, why not? My money is your money. Your money is my money. It's all together, and we spend it together on everything we need, from mutual bills like rent, electricity, the cable bill and the phone bill, etc. Then we'll buy the food we need. But then we'll spend it on what we each need: your clothes, my clothes, your entertainment, my entertainment, all with this giant pool of money that we have put together. Sure, one person might make much more money than the other person, but that's okay. There's no regrets. We're together. We love each other. And so we put our money together and share. Sure. And that way we don't have conflict over you're spending my money or I'm spending your money. It's all our money. And so it often works out a little smoother that way with type B. So we have to move along. So what are other things that are important besides relationships? Well, obviously wealth. It would be nice to have a good job, and perhaps for a lot of people this might be the most important thing in life, perhaps even more important than having a good long-term relationship. However, it could get lonely out there, even if you're wealthy. And you might not think you need a long term relationship or an intimate partner, but perhaps you really do. And perhaps you need both: an intimate long term partner. As I said, easier said than done. So, even perhaps for wealthy people, well, perhaps that's because they're too finicky. You gotta open up to more possibilities. You can't always find the perfect partner. And of course, wealth can be very precarious. Sure, it's very important. I agree. But wealth can come and go. You might have a good job and then you could get laid off. It all could be very difficult sometimes. And disillusionment can happen, especially in a situation like that where you're laid off from a good job. Then what are you going to do? It might be hard to find another good job. Well, then, while you're searching for a job, you might get depressed. Well, what could help you with your depression? Somebody who loves you, a good long-term relationship, and that could help you with many things, from losing a loved one, a death in the family or whatever, to dealing with health problems like sickness or accidents, and dealing with wealth problems such as the loss of a job. Someone who loves you could really carry you through. But then you gotta carry yourself through too. You gotta have health. You gotta be able to do it. Well, perhaps this might be the most important of all. You have to have health. Well, to have wealth, you have to be able to make money. You have to be in good mental and physical shape. And same with finding a good life partner. And you want to maintain that mental and physical shape for a long time. Perhaps till you're almost 64, like me. Well, how do you do that? Well, you start by flossing your teeth. That's right. You probably didn't want to hear it, But that's the truth. Your mouth is really just a big infection. It's just a matter of how well you control it. And the infection in your mouth, especially if it gets kind of bad, could spread into your bloodstream and even affect your cardiac health, your heart health, and your mental state. Not flossing your teeth could lead to depression. It could lead to heart conditions and other bad things. Don't fall for it. It could really shorten your life, not flossing your teeth. I know you don't have time for it. Well, I guess neither do I, but I do it anyway. Adults don't floss. Well, that's fine. I'm a child then, a 64-year-old child. Sure, that's the other thing. You gotta have a youthful attitude. That goes a long way too, obviously. So you get this youthful attitude, and you're confident, and you start flossing your teeth. Sure, it makes a mess. Sure, your partner might think it's disgusting. You might think it's disgusting. It might make a mess that's hard to clean up, but that's all too bad. It's still the best thing to do, even though it takes a long time and might make a bit of a mess. Floss away, especially the bottom front teeth. If you ever notice when you go to the dentist and they pick at your teeth, well, perhaps you didn't floss enough. So the less you floss, the more they pick, and the more your gums bleed. I remember one time the hygienist was picking in the center of my bottom teeth and got the pick in there and almost lifted me out of the chair with the pick. It was hung up on some plaque. It broke free and I fell back down, and luckily my teeth didn't shatter. Well, you have to have good healthy teeth. And of course it affects your jawbones. If you don't floss enough, your jawbone starts to get shorter, exposing more roots of your teeth. Eventually, after a lot of roots are exposed, because your jawbone has gotten too short, well, your teeth get loose and eventually fall out. Then you got dentures. Dentures are horrible. They don't work well. You don't want to use them. I know that from people who've told me who have had dentures. So avoid dentures. Avoid the periodontist. All you have to do is floss. Keep flossing. It is very important. And keep going to the dentist. By flossing, it will help your jawbone. And perhaps bone loss could even be reversed. I think it happened with me a little bit. And your teeth will be in better shape, more secure, less likely to fall out. So, what else can you do? Well, obviously eat a good diet. Well, easier said than done for me, who likes junk food like Taco Bell, but less Taco Bell and more natural food. Don't forget to exercise. That's real important too. Hit the trail. Take the steep trail straight up the mountain. Get a good workout. If there's not steep trails in your area, well, perhaps you gotta do other things. Perhaps running, or joining a gym, or weightlifting, or doing exercises such as push-ups and leg lifts, and sit-ups. You gotta do it all. Push-ups, sit-ups, leg lifts, hiking, other activities, running, whatever. Keep yourself active. Perhaps playing intense game like soccer. Whatever. By being active, it will reduce your cholesterol, it will reduce your blood pressure, and reduce your blood sugar. It's the miracle cure all without any medication. Just exercise. Just do it. So, by eating better, flossing your teeth, and exercising, these three things could really help you live longer and happier. Sure, it all makes a big difference. So, you gotta have a good perspective on the future, a good attitude. Sure, be optimistic. Things might not be as bleak as you think they will be. There is often help on the way, and typically you have more friends than you realize. So we gain our confidence. We try to find and maintain a good relationship and build our wealth and keep our health. We need to do it all to have a better future perspective. Now it is time for power to the people. Here I look at how giving more power to the people in influencing government could lead to better outcomes, and how power to the people is a goal of the East Side Imaginary Territory, and what that might feel like. Sure, I think about this often, the feeling of it all. Well, we'll get to that feeling a little later. Well, so let's jump in and look at some of the basics. Well, when you look at any given situation, often there's several ways to approach it, several ways to manage it. Sure, life is complicated, and so is this concept of power to the people. So obviously, I can't cover everything, but I'll cover some key points. So, when I talk about approaching something or managing something, well, what about competition versus cooperation? Sure, how does that play out? Well, I guess competition might be good for sports, but what about things like government and what's best for society? Well, if we're in competition, which I guess we really are, it's just a matter of how much we really want to compete and how much we'll, be a little more laid back and or cooperate. So, well, let's look at it. We're in competition with each other for wealth, for jobs, for possible life partners, and other things. And perhaps who has the most influence in government. So sure, there's competition there. Well, when you have competition, a lot of times, well, you keep your strategy a secret. And you don't share information with others. You just kind of try your best to get ahead, sometimes using deception. Or, as I said, at least withholding some information You're not going to tell your competitors the best approach to a situation. Of course not. You're going to utilize it yourself and hope they don't figure it out. Well, with this approach, you may or may not succeed. And with the lack of cooperation, things might be a little chaotic. And the best results might not be obtained. Simply because we're working against each other. And whoever, quote, wins, well, they'll get their way more. But is it the best way? Just because they, quote, won the competition? Especially if deception and withholding information is allowed. Okay, enough of competition. What about cooperation? Well, as I said before, we're all competing for jobs, wealth, possible lifetime partners, and many other things. Sure, life is full of competition. But how much do we really have to compete? Perhaps if we cooperate more, things will work better. Well, here's why. Well, when you cooperate, you're sharing information and strategies. And especially if you have a large group of people cooperating, such as in society, well, if everybody's cooperating, or most people are cooperating, and we're sharing information, sharing strategies, educating each other, so we all know what's going on and all understand the best approach and why it should work, well, then we could come up with the best strategy. We could put our minds together and figure out what is best. We could take time to debate things, sure, and listen to each other. Why not? And cooperate. Work together to find the best solution. Sure. So, let's do it. Well, the best solution, obviously, would have more power to the people. Wasn't it a Beatles song from the 60s? Power to the people? Power to the people? Power to the people, right on. Something like that. Sure. Anyway. So, we have the power to the people. Anyway. So, we're with that, with more power to the people, well, we could influence government more. And this, as I said, was an idea back in the 60s and early 70s, and I guess many times else throughout history. Sure, let's give power to the people. And typically we'll get good results. Let's look at the late 60s and early 70s. Well, while that Beatles song was popular, well, shortly thereafter, there was the formation of the Environmental Protection Agency, and many environmental laws passed to protect our air and water. Then we had less smog. Once these laws were passed, smog was reduced. Water quality was greatly improved. I remember all of this. I remember when I was younger, in the 60s and early 70s, things were more polluted. And things improved later on in the 70s and 80s with better water and better air. And we feel the effects of it to this day, of this work to clean up our air and water. Well, obviously now, in 2025, under the Trump administration, all these rules to protect our air and water are being gutted. Gutted in the interest of a few wealthy individuals and corporations, not in interest of the people at large. So we have to restore power to the people. Sure, instead of power to the wealthy individuals and corporations. We need to change things around. We all need to have our voices heard. We need to have influence. And we need to get together and talk. People from all sorts of backgrounds. Everybody. Everybody must have their voice heard. And then we can come up with the best solution. Sure. Such as better environmental quality laws and better health care. Sure, better benefits in case we get laid off of work. In case we need food stamps, we want to be able to have enough food stamps. If we get laid off of work, we want to have our unemployment benefits last until we get our next job. That could be longer than we anticipate, perhaps over 3 months, perhaps even over 6 months. Sure, it's all a struggle trying to find a good job. Meanwhile, yes, there's some cat obnoxiously scratching cat litter. Oh, God. This is bad. The cat is making too much noise. Hopefully the cat will chill out. Anyway, so, with power to the people, as I said, we could have better unemployment insurance that will last until our next job. Better health benefits. Sure, we don't need the wealthy corporations making money.
Casey Waters Show. Producer, Casey Waters. Graphic editing, Judson Laird. Please note our new email address, CaseyWaters2 @CaseyWaters.com.